Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. We are going to be wrapping up everything that I read in February today, which was a lot, which is surprising because it's a short month and I've been kind of dealing on and off with a reading slump, a lot of DNFing, but fear not, folks, I made it through. I abandoned my DBR and just wrote every mood, every whim, leaned into everything that was working for me. There's a lot of 4 and 5 stars. There's some that I have some more complicated feelings on. There's still a DNF, which is kind of from January, but that's not the point. A lot of book hangovers were had this month where the stories really lingered with me. Sorry in advance to everyone's TBRs because I got a lot of bangers on here because we have so much to get to. I'm just gonna jump into things. So first things first, we have Pride and Prejudice, which I actually read twice this month, and I'll get into why in a second. This is a historical romance. It's a classic. We have Elizabeth Bennet, who is the second oldest of 4 sisters. Her mom is obsessed with trying to get all of these girls married off. Not a lot of prospects despite her machinations. Mr. Bingley ends up moving to town. He ends up showing interest in the oldest daughter, so when he's throwing a ball and he's got his buddy Mr. Darcy with him, he's like, hey, there's another daughter in the Bennet family you could dance with, Elizabeth. And he's like, yeah, not really into that. It doesn't really do it for me. Unfortunately, Elizabeth overhears and she's like, well, I'm not gonna be putting up with that bullshit. So when he approaches her, she's a little bit like, you can stick it where the sun don't shine. This is where Elizabeth's prejudice towards Darcy comes from. And then Darcy has to overcome his pride in his social standing. So this was a fun reread. I was really surprised how much I actually remembered of this because this wasn't my favorite Jane Austen when I was younger, but the writing is so approachable. It's like dialogue heavy or like summaries of dialogue. And despite remembering so much about this book, I still got pulled into the emotions, like the annoyance with the younger sister and the mom, but then also like the stress of the 3rd act and then the sweeping gestures from Darcy. I was surprised how much this one really got to me. I loved Elizabeth. Spunky had a spine, but also was still like cordial and tried to be respectful. This reread, honestly, I was like thinking a lot about how little control women really had over their lives. I loved my read of this. So I don't really want to rate a classic because it feels weird, but my enjoyment level of this was a 5 star. Then I moved on, flipping pages, to Sense and Sensibility, which is another, it's technically a historical romance as well, but it's more about the relationship between these 2 sisters. So in this one, we have Mariana, who's very emotional, wears her heart on her sleeve. Her emotions kind of lead her to leaning into her whims and maybe opening herself up to gossip when she starts showing interest in a guy. And then by contrast, we have Eleanor, who is the opposite. She's like, shove those feelings down. We got to be logical. We got to get through this. Really hiding how she feels and people thinking she's very aloof and not very into the guy that she actually is when her romantic pursuits are dashed. It's like parallel experiences that they're having and how they navigate those and the world. This one used to be my favorite and I definitely see why. I definitely identify with Eleanor a whole lot. I'm a very practical person. I'm not very whimsical. I see why I liked it. I think this one, after reading Pride and Prejudice, it just felt like there was a lot more farting around that was happening. It had a certain aimlessness to it. We went to the ball here. We traveled to that lady's house. You can just tell that it used to be epistolary where I'm like, oh, if this had been in a letter, you wouldn't necessarily question it because it's just like 2 sisters talking back and forth or however it was framed. But like when you actually tell it as a novel, you're just kind of like, why are we at this dude's house again? And then the romances, as someone who really loves a good romance, I just think the romances weren't that strong. Eleanor ends up with a dude that I'm like, so happy for you, but couldn't be me. Just a wet blanket of a man. And then Mariana ends up with a guy that they're like, oh my God, crusty. He's so old. He's like 30. So I was like, well, that's just rude. It was interesting reading these back to back, Pride and Prejudice and then Sense and Sensibility, because I could see in Sense and Sensibility some of the characters, themes, and ideas she ended up playing with more in Pride and Prejudice with different characters and kind of like reformulating those. But definitely didn't enjoy this one as much. I don't know, maybe it would be like a 3 or a 4 if I'm being honest about enjoyment. But again, it feels weird to rate classics. But the way this all happened, I read Pride and Prejudice and I was like, oh my God, so good. I should reread my actual favorite, Sense and Sensibility. And I was like, that was not as that was not as good. Wait, is Pride and Prejudice really that good? And then I reread Pride and Prejudice. So that's how that ended up happening. But anyways, let's move on. So next up I have Love on the Line by C.W. Farnsworth. This is the third book in an interconnected series. This one comes out May 5th, so I was lucky enough to get an arc from NetGalley. This is coach athlete, but kind of athlete for athlete. We've got Olympians, forced proximity, second chance. So we have our heroine, Claire, who is living out her dream of playing for a professional soccer team in her home city of Boston. The thing that sucks though is, although she's kind of like living her dream, in a lot of ways she's not. Nothing outside of soccer is really working out. And she's starting to think that like maybe it's time to hang up those cleats. Maybe this needs to be the last season that she's playing because it's not exactly her career that pays the bills. Then we have Otto, who is playing professionally over in Europe. He ends up having an injury that takes him out mid-season, doesn't even know if he's going to be able to come back. So he needs to get his mind off of things. He ends up agreeing to fill in as a coach for one of the coaches that is going on maternity leave for the Boston Siege, the very team that Claire plays on. That's a little bit of a complicated situation because these two at a prior Olympics had hooked up, never to speak again after some coarse words were exchanged and only one of them walked away with a gold. Being back together, there's a certain comfort, a certain clarity that it's bringing, and it might just reignite what they once had. So I absolutely loved this. I loved how well placed the past chapters would be. So you would be in the present, they would kind of allude to something, and you're like, what are they talking about? And then you would immediately get that past chapter that answered those questions. So it never interrupted the tension of the present. And I think it made the tension more palpable in that present timeline because they're trying to be professional and handle this well, but you kind of keep seeing them like accidentally orienting themselves towards one another. There's a certain comfort, there's a certain known feeling that they don't have with other people around them. Makes their conversations both like pleasant and easy, but also very painful because like obviously it didn't work out. And there's just so much longing, especially on his end, and just how much he just pursues things that he knows are important to her, even when she tries to downplay it. He just sees her. And the heroine is just like so tenacious, but just so worn down. And she's just like trying to make it through. And then Otto comes in and he's a little bit of a nice balm on everything. This also just like made me miss being in a team sport. I miss the camaraderie, the joking around, that like bond that you have after doing a really grueling workout and having survived it and like walking back to your cars and just being like, oh my God, how did we all survive that? But anyways, if you can't tell, I'm giving this one a rating of 5 stars. I absolutely ate this up, and it's what made me want to read From Lukov with Love so bad because I love that athlete for athlete. Oh, it was so good. So next up I have the lovely Return by Carian. This is like age gap. It's got like a reincarnation, second chance kind of feel. So we have Alex Fox, who's endured a terrible tragedy. He ended up losing his wife in a really terrible accident, and after that really became reclusive. 6 years later, there's a young girl, Penny Rose, that ends up kind of entering Alex's life by chance. She's very quirky, kind of charming. Penny has always felt very out of place in her life, longing for this home that doesn't seem to be exist. Her mom is always reminding her that's not a real place. Kind of freaks her parents out. They're not really sure how to support her, but one day she sees the house that she's talking about. So she goes over to the house and ends up meeting Alex. Now, over the years, Alex and Penny have developed a pretty deep friendship built on a lot of shared interests despite their age difference. But Penny's got some odd knowledge of a previous life with him that starts popping up more and more the more they spend time together. But Penny's revelations about these visions strains their relationship because we have to now answer the question, is Penny suffering from some delusions, or is this his wife reincarnated? So sadly, this was my only DNF for the month, and I didn't really take a ton of notes on this, so this is a lot from memory. But this is really not a bad book. That's not why I DNF'd it. I think the premise was really strong. It was very unique. I like that when Penny was young, we didn't have anything in her perspective. It was from adult perspectives like Alex or her mother, and then as she grew up, then we got more of her perspective. I also liked that there was a pretty slow build of evidence that maybe reincarnation is what's at play here. It wasn't quickly jumped to as a conclusion. But ultimately, I ended up DNFing this because I didn't like the romance. I had a hard time with the fact that she was so young. I just really couldn't get over that. Even if she was his reincarnated wife, I just didn't feel that emotional connection. I saw it very logically. I saw the build. I saw how it was happening, but I wasn't connecting to it. And part of it was because I had that ick with the age, especially because like when she was, in her teens, some of his friends were making comments that are like, probably shouldn't have her hanging around, looks a little suspicious. I was like, ew, that's kind of gross. Feels like we're already kind of setting up and forcing feelings that aren't there. And that kind of started the ick factor for me. And I think I just need to accept that Carian just doesn't write books that I like. She's just not an author for me. So I ended up DNFing this one at 50%. So I'm not going to rate it for that reason. Next up, we have one that's just a quick little cutie. We have The Perfect Match by Milena Mckay. This is a sapphic Valentine's Day novella. And we have Abby, who is a new Cupid, fresh from the academy. She's headed to Sin City for the annual conference for Cupids, because of course, the hotel ends up making a mistake with her reservation. And that leads to her having to share a room with her idol, Sabine. So Sabine is known for having a perfect record with her matches, but her business success hasn't really translated to her love life. But things might just change with her new roommate. This was a fun little romp. It definitely stays true to Milena Mckay's preferred tropes. We have Ice Queen, we have age gap, we have workplace. So it really was all of her strengths. It was just made into like a bite-sized Cupid version. One thing I will note though is I don't think there was actually a full-on spice scene. I'm trying to remember the end. There might have been one, but I was a little surprised there's not very much, if any, but had a great time while I read it. Rating 4 stars. So next up, I read another C.W. Farnsworth, and it's Hate to Love. What? It's Famous Last Words. So this is first in an interconnected series. It's Hate to Love, hockey, college romance. We have Harlow, and she spends her time in college like any other college student, but she's also trying to avoid a certain guy by the name of Connor Hart. Now, he's the captain of the hockey team, and in typical fashion, he's cocky, he's arrogant, he's got all the ladies interested in him, and while other girls might be charmed by him, Harlow knows him better, knows about his past. But when they're at a house party and Harlow is talking about how she's trying to train for a marathon and it's really not going that well, a mutual friend of theirs is like, hey, you know who you should talk to? Connor. And that's how Connor ends up helping her with her training. So now that they're on speaking terms, maybe they can get over their past. This one, I was a little surprised because this is probably C.W. Farnsworth's that was a mouthful. It is her most popular book, but I think compared to her other series, her other books, this is pretty tropey, cliche. It's well done, but this just leans a lot more average to me than her other books. I enjoyed that there was a Washington setting. It was fun, captured the gloom and the rain, even if things were a little bit off. The location where they're at is never like fully identified. There's made up towns, but it's somewhere that's close to the sound. And if you're close to the sound, we don't really get like a lot of snow. And if we do get snow, everyone freaks out. And the grocery stores run out of bread because apparently that's the only time Seattleites will eat carbs. And nobody drives anywhere. At one point, there was like casual mention of snow, and I was like, I don't know where that would happen, that no one would be freaking out about that. It's an easy enough mistake to make, but it was noticeable to me because I was like, why is everyone not panicking about the snow? Anyway, love the heroine. I like that she was in the driver's seat for a lot of this. He was on board the entire time, but he really let her be in the driver's seat. I liked that they had a shared activity as well that helped them have structured reasons to continually run into each other, continue to spend time together, but then also you can see very obviously when it starts evolving into more and we start trying to like bump into each other and see each other outside of those structured times. The third act I found to be incredibly cliche. I could see it coming from a mile away. I had a good time while I was reading, but I don't think that this is really anything to write home about necessarily. It's not one that's going to stick with me. Also, okay, can we talk about this cover, guys? What's going on with this dude's neck and chin? It looks like a turtle cosplaying as human. I can't. Anyways, rating is somewhere between 3 and 4 stars. I'm leaning towards 4 stars. I don't know. We'll leave it at that. Next up, I have another arc, and this is Make It Hurt by, I almost said Mitchell Michelle. What's happening right now? Elle Mitchell. It's a college bully, why choose, dark romance step sibling. There's like a sneeze of hockey in this bad boy. So this one comes out on March 9th. It is the first in a duet, and I think the duet should be complete by April. I need to look that up again. So we have Sage, and she knows the exact day that her life went to shit because she found out her boyfriend was cheating on her with her best friend right as she had to move to a new small town because her mom got married to her boss on a whim. And now she's having to move in with this guy and his son. And then, unbeknownst to her, she ends up almost hitting her new stepbrother while driving into town. Now, later she will come to regret the almost portion and wish she had just hit the gas instead of the brakes, but we're not to that point just yet. He is not happy to have a stepsister. He blames Sage and her mom for his mom dying. It's complicated. Him and his friends really take every opportunity to make her life a living hell. And it doesn't even let up when they leave for college. He still finds a way to have a grip on her. And the torment has changed Sage a lot. She's a lot more cynical, but she's hoping to have a little bit of a fresh start at a university, even if it does put her back in Elias and his friend's vicinity. But very early on in freshman year, why don't I say freshman that way? Sage ends up having a little oopsie that could maybe land her in prison, and she needs help covering up the crime. So she ends up enlisting Elias, Dax, and Nolan for help. They agree that they will help her cover up said crime. They will keep her secret. They will become her co-conspirators. However, she's gonna have to do whatever they want, thus resuming her torment. But then a stalker starts targeting Sage as well and seems to know their shared secret, and they are the only ones that she can turn to once again. So what's funny about this one is it reminded me if the losers really went hard on the bullying and instead of being mechanics, they were college students and co-conspirators. It wastes no time just getting into the chaos. Like the very first scene is her like almost hitting Elias in her car and like sobbing and just being like, what the fuck is happening to my life? You have a lot of these like sad, scary things that are happening, but then you would just get these incredible one-liners from Sage that would make me laugh out loud. And it just somehow made everything more dark and sinister. I loved that the forced proximity kept escalating and escalating, and it gives them like more and more reasons to be around one another. The poly setup, I actually shockingly really liked. It's not always my favorite thing. Elle Mitchell's successfully done it for me before, so I shouldn't be so surprised. And I can't imagine her with one of them without the others to kind of balance everything out. So Dax is like a deranged golden retriever. He's excited, he wants to be around her, but he likes to remain unattached, unaffected, and then he can be very demanding and intense at other times without really explaining things, but then very soft when she complies. Then we have Nolan, who's like a lot more reserved and disciplined, deeply damaged. Damaged to the point that it's very hard for him to show up in relationships in the way that he would like. He is my favorite, obviously. And then Elias is kind of the least involved. He keeps using torment as a way to get close to Sage. More and more has to kind of reckon with the fact that he is getting in his own way because what he really wants is to be with Sage. There was something about how all of these relationships were written that it felt like you had these like kind of almost like found family moments where you have these private, pure, affectionate moments. It just felt like a very genuine interaction. And then you get this like gut punch, the oxygen just absolutely sucked out of the room when the heroine kind of gets reminded that, oh yeah, this is like not a for real thing. We're just doing this because of the setup and situation that we've got and how much that really hurts. I will also warn you, this is super high spice. This is the primary where these people connect, but the ending and the cliffhanger on this is so intense. It's like a horror movie at different points throughout this book with the stalking and with the whole like covering up the crime. But truly that last scene, it was like, so it feels like it should be illegal to not have the second book. I'm gonna need Elle Mitchell to get on that. Anyways, rating 5 stars. So next up, we're gonna try and go through my vlog books. Well, we're not gonna try, we're actually gonna do it, but we're gonna try and be little speed demons, which I always say I'm gonna do. I never do it. Anyways, Slashes in the Snow by M. Never was the first one. This is a light MC, step sibling, hate to love, dark romance. So Kira is being stalked but doesn't really have any evidence of it. She's home alone while her mom and stepdad are in Paris. She had to stay behind to finish out college. And it turns out that there's only one person that she thinks can possibly protect her, which is her estranged stepbrother, who is the leader for an MC. He initially turns her away because he's not really speaking to to anyone in the family. He hates his dad for turning his back on the MC and replacing the family that they had with this new shiny one. But his conscience ends up getting the better of him. He eventually agrees, and that's how they spend every waking moment together for the next month. Rapid fire thoughts. I liked it. I didn't love it. Relationship was sweet. I think they go well together. I just think everything needed like 50 more pages to really pack a punch. I think if you like suspense, this will be a fun one. Execution for me is more like a 3. Enjoyment is a 4. That was actually pretty fast. I'm really proud of that. Moving on. Now we have, I almost put this up backwards, from Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. Hate to Love, professional pairs skaters. Yeah. So we have Jasmine. She's a professional skater, started in singles, migrated to pairs, has dreams of winning gold, but her partner abruptly leaves her. So she's kind of left to figure out what she wants to do next. And she's a little bit uncertain. There's a lot of people pushing her to retire and to start coaching. She is in her late 20s after all. She's like not quite ready, not quite done. She wants that like real winning moment when she is approached by her dream and her nightmare, Ivan Lukov, who is her nemesis. Pairing up with him could finally mean that she would be winning because he is pair skating golden boy, but also she has to get along with him long enough for that to actually happen. This one, selfishly, I wanted this to be so much longer. I had such a good time with this one. I liked that this was like a slightly different hero and heroine for Mariana. The heroine definitely is not for everybody. Saw it in the reviews, got it in my comments on that vlog. She's a little bit snarky and can come off rude. Some people read that as immature. I thought she was just kind of spunky. But I liked it because it wasn't just endlessly sunshine out her ass heroines that you can sometimes get with Mariana. And then the hero was a lot less standoffish. He had a little bit more warmth to him, although it takes a minute to get to that. But I loved how he cared for the heroine. I liked that they had shared activities, shared goals, just conflicting personalities, but then it turns out like maybe they're not so conflicting because their banter feels barbed initially and then turns into like something a little bit more playful. But anyways, I really enjoyed that movement from hate to friendship to love. This was a rating of 5 stars. And the final melon, we have Credence by Penelope Douglas. This is a taboo, forced proximity, new adult. So we have Tiernan, and both of her parents have tragically passed. They were Hollywood stars, and she's underage for a little bit longer. So she needs to stay with someone until she can like turn 18 and do whatever she wants with all this money. So her step uncle, who she's never met, is like, you can come out to Colorado, live with me and the boys. A very different lifestyle. It's hard work. It's isolating. So very different from the life you lead now, but you can come and stay with me. She agrees and rediscovers herself and what she wants for her future while being trapped in the mountain and exploring relations with all 3 men in this house. So I guess this really takes the cake for keeping it in the family. I was really surprised how emotional this one was. I expected it to be a lot of just like smut and spice. It wasn't. Like 50% of this book is really her learning to heal. The second half is more her exploring relationships with all 3 of the guys. And I think that's kind of where it fell apart for me. I didn't love the romance because although they make sense together, because she does end up with just one of them, in the end, she does get with all 3 of them. But I think there needed to be more time to really develop them properly on page and see how her addressing the grief and mourning her former self and figuring out who she is manifests, you know, later. So I end up giving this a rating of 3 stars. All right, next up, I have the Firebird Chronicles by T.A. White. So I read the first 4 books, I believe. Rules for Redemption, Age of Deception, Threshold for Annihilation, and on and on and on. I'm going to talk about these books as a single book because a lot of my comments kind of like run through all of the book. This is a space opera with a whisper of romance that kind of builds throughout the series. We have Kira, who is a decorated war hero, but she has left behind that life for something much more simple, a solitary life as a scavenger. That involves her going into wrecks of alien ships from the war and finding really important pieces to salvage and bring back for analysis. Now, her latest salvage ends up going haywire. It's a really cool piece that has a really high payout, but that means that she takes some risks that she probably shouldn't have, ends up damaging her ship. She then has to go to a space station for repairs. And the one that's closest, the one that she needs to go to, has a lot of ties to her past. She'd really rather avoid it if she could. Her goal really is to try and get in, get out, get those repairs for those ships, and be on her merry way. But that doesn't work out. There are 2 children in danger, and she knows that security for the space station will not arrive in time, so she inserts herself to save the kids, which then draws the attention of the Tuons that are accompanying these kids. These are an alien race that are often called wizards because of their magic-like capabilities. They're much more advanced than humans in general, and they don't really trust humans at all, which has led to a bit of a disintegration in their agreement because they have a shared enemy that they fought against in the war. And that agreement, now that we're in peacetime, alliance is starting to crumble. So humans are pretty desperate to keep that alliance. So when the Tuons demand that Kira come with them back to their home planet, they are like, absolutely, send her on her way. Kira's kind of going against her will. So the entire time she's like, how am I gonna get out of this? This series has been just absolutely top tier. I cannot put the books down. Every single day since I have picked up the first book, I have read at least a little bit from a book in the series. I'm continuously just picking up the next one and picking up the next one. It's sci-fi setting, but it has this kind of fantasy like flavoring to it. Plotting is so well done in this book because there's so many things that get hinted at and alluded to, or these little scenes that you have where you're like, what's going on with that you kind of forget about. And then in the following book, you realize, oh my God, that's how that's all connected. That's what that was referring to. And I think that third person POV really works well in this book because we have so many of those secrets that we don't get fully to crack open like every thought and see inside the mind of every character every time we get their perspective. There's so many pieces that come together throughout the series, so many secrets that Kira is keeping. And there's so much in terms of politics. There's alliances. There's people that are being underhanded, sneaky, that have different thoughts on how to approach it because of Tuon culture, because of human culture. Just feel these like drum beats of war slowly ramping up in the background of all of this. I just feel like the pacing in this, it never lulls. Even when you think like this book or this scene is going to be a detour, it ends up connecting back to the plot in some way that you didn't foresee. And I really, really love too that with these books, timeline-wise, going back to back to back to back, there's such a seamless way that the author, without info dumping, will very quickly remind you of, oh yeah, that's why this person is important. This is how this person is involved. This is that detail that you need to remember that they need to keep hidden about this person. So I love that. The heroine is like top tier. She's so skilled. She's so incredibly capable of getting herself out of all these scrapes. It reminds me a lot of Kate Daniels. So she spends a lot of time with the healers because of this, because she really does get herself into scrapes, but she is just able to pull off the impossible. Incredibly stubborn, but she's aware that she's stubborn. Also have these kind of lone wolf instincts where she's like, I know I'm capable and I want to protect everyone around me. So I'm just going to try and go at this alone, because she has that deep loyalty and that deep love for a lot of people around her. And then you get to watch her slowly find community again and find the people that will be in her corner, let down her guard a little bit more, let other people step in and help her, trust other people with a bit of information so that they can be more effective as a team. It's such an incredible arc. And then the romance is definitely like super, super subplot. Like the first book, there's like 2 scenes and it's literally her being like, that guy's kind of hot. It's nothing flashy. It's not very smut forward, although you do eventually get spice. It's just a lot of stolen moments, adoration from afar. It's built out of respect. It feels so fitting for 2 warriors who really think very highly of the other's capability. There's so much respect there, but they're also gonna shut that down and try and focus on the task at hand. Although if they can loop in a way to help this person that they care about, they'll find a way to do it. And there's just like these beautiful declarations of love, teasing quality to their relationship. It's like a few very impactful scenes that you'll get per book, but it does start to become more and more of the plot as you go through the books. And you also get a cute little sassy side drone character that I really love. I need to cut myself off because otherwise I'm going to gush about these books just on and on and on and on and on. But absolutely top tier, every single one, 5 stars. There is not a filler book in here. There's no drops in enjoyment. I am captivated the entire time. It's so action-packed. I love these books so much. Next up, we have one that I sadly did not love as much, and it's Betray Me Once by KV Rose. So this is a standalone college hockey MMF dark like thriller suspense type romance. So this one is about 3 different people. We have Faust, who is the cold captain of the hockey team who is looking to go pro. We have Sylvan, who is unpredictable, a little bit cocky, and a rising star on the hockey team. Then we have Neve, who is just kind of a regular college student but has terrible taste in men. They meet in a pretty unconventional way. Neve is attempting to escape her older boyfriend, who is in a rage. She literally ends up running into the boys after they are coming out of practice while she's trying to escape him. They end up distracting him a little bit and providing some misdirection. They think they've gotten rid of him until they hear Neve scream. Turns out she stumbled upon her boyfriend's body. And then there's an investigation that's ensuing. But it's not going to be just this investigation. There's going to be a whole lot more because bodies are dropping around campus. And while all of them might be pulled to one another, they're also suspicious that each of them is a killer. So this book really has very cinematic scene right up front. Start out in one of the hero's perspective, which I thought was smart because then you're not really sure about Neve and whether or not she did something or not. But I felt like once we got into Neve's perspective, things just kind of got really clunky. It was like there were these big blocks of internal dialogue about very unrelated things to the thing that she is talking about with her roommate. So they're having like a really simple, short conversation, but it ends up taking chapters because she's thinking about how her mom is so blah, 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 and how she's gotten really into Jungian psychology. The more we got introduced to Neve, I really noticed how much KV really just put herself into Neve. And if you follow her on Instagram or subscribe to her newsletter, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's super into Jung, big into weightlifting, poetry. She moved from Canada, from the South. She's not consistent about wearing her glasses. Just could feel her a little bit too much in a way that I didn't find engaging. In general, I kind of struggled with a lot of scenes in this book because although I was engaged in the scene itself, they would like cut off midway through and then we wouldn't necessarily get follow-up. So it just felt like an unfinished scene rather than maybe feeling like intentionally suspenseful. The first 50%, I was just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like I want to keep reading. There's something compelling me forward, but I feel like there's a lot of pieces that are making this feel a little bit unpolished. What kind of kept me engaged is really tension-filled, heart-pounding scenes. She really did a great job of describing fear, the whole process of like creeping up to a door when you think someone's out there and seeing someone through the people. That ended up falling apart later in the book because the actual mystery kind of got a little bit messy. So it would be like, reveal, just kidding. Reveal again, maybe question mark. Maybe it's this other person, just kidding. It just felt like attempts at misdirection, but it's like, but we established that it was this person and it ends up being that person. That didn't quite come together in a way that I found very satisfying. I do think that the characters were good though. They definitely each added something. There was good chemistry, good tension amongst them. I'm still a little bit unclear as to how we ended in a throuple, but I'm not mad at it. Like they all make sense together. There's like a few pieces I think miss with the emotional and the relationship development. The other thing that I gotta mention is that there were also noticeable errors. If it had been like one of these things, I probably would have overlooked it, but there was like several. It said oak milk instead of oat milk. A rival university's name changes within a chapter. It flips back and forth between being called Lincoln and being called Hamilton. I think she tried to change the name of the university, but I think she missed a few of the spots. The detective has the same name as the school because of that, because we didn't get all of those cleared up. There was also a reference to eating at Sonic, but this takes place in Canada, and Sonic is famously known for only being a US fast food company. So I don't know how they were eating there. And KV lives in Canada, so I don't know how you make an error like that. This book left me confused. It left me confused because it feels like this unfinished draft. It feels like something that just needed to cook, but at the same time, like I never wanted to put it down. Like I was so engaged the entire time I was reading. So I don't know, but the errors and like the clunkiness of this is just so noticeable in this book that I feel like I gotta rate it 3 stars. So next up, I read the first 2 books in All the Thugs I Loved That Didn't Love Me Back by Jaquel J. This is a proper series. I think there's 4 books total. It's urban fiction, and we've got the music industry, we've got millionaires, single moms, we've got multiple relationships going on. So this is centered on Bless and Polite. They are used to hustling in the streets. They were selling drugs for a really long time, but after Polite gets busted and gets sent to prison, they're like, we have to find a way to find more legitimate streams of income. So they end up creating a record label because Polite is a rapper. So Polite is having a listening party for his latest release, and that's how they end up meeting Ace and Sin. So Ace is a successful blogger. She's a single mom, and she's at this party to review the album for her blog. She ends up running into Bless, but these two both have baggage. He's got a wife that died a number of years ago, and he's not quite over it. Ace is still in kind of a situationship relationship with her ex-baby daddy, who's this famous tattoo artist that she always kind of thought it would work out with, but it seems to not be. Then we also have Sin. Ace invited her to the party. She's an entrepreneur, and it's left very little time for anything else. When she meets Polite, they figure out that they have a shared passion for music. Sin used to do a lot of singing, but never really pursued it as a career, but Polite is determined to get her to sing again. And the second book ends up introducing another relationship with the third brother, but that's kind of the gist of things. So the first book, very fun because it was very dramatic, very juicy. Everyone is so messy. Like, they've got it so together with their professional life. But then when it comes to relationships, they're all just like struggling so hard. I love that we got multiple romances that are happening simultaneously rather than having each relationship have a single book. It's like fun to get different characters, different perspectives of the relationship from other characters who are outside of it while it's progressing. Now, I will admit, the men, they've got some work to do because while I am so happy for these ladies that they think that these guys are the bee's knees, they're really hot and cold. And I want what's best for the ladies. So they have some work to do in the upcoming books for sure. Although I'm very entertained, very engaged at all times with these books, the dialogue, it was like noticeably choppy in just like certain sections where you would get like a lot of word echoes. And that would get like just a hair distracting while I was reading. But this absolutely kept me entertained, kept me hooked. The cliffhangers on these books are absolutely brutal. I will say book 2 slows down quite a bit, and the boys get a lot more hot and cold in that book rather than feeling like they're really trying to pursue a relationship. I felt like I left them after book 2 in a worse off situation than when they were coming into book 1, and it felt a lot less juicy and just kind of dramatic. But once again, cliffhanger, that was absolutely brutal. Way more brutal than the first book. I don't know who is in front of me in the holds line at the library for the third book, but I need them to hurry up like so bad because literally, are my characters alive? I need to know. Rating for book 1 is probably a 4-star. Book 2, kind of waffle back and forth between a 4 and a 3. Next up, I have Body Check, and this is by J.J. Arias. This is a sapphic hate to love reality competition romance. So we have Fabiola, and she never thought she would go back on the reality competition show Cutthroat Island. So she was so close to winning it all, but she missed out on that prize money. But they're having an all-star show, but it turns out when she gets there, it is about pairing up with your rival from the show and competing with them. And that's how we meet Cameron. This is the gal that tricked her out of the prize money and broke her heart at the same time. Now, Cameron is hoping that by coming on the show, competing with Fob, that they can win the prize money together and she can redeem herself to Fob. But even though they're having to compete as a team, Fabiola isn't willing to let things go despite her lingering feelings. I loved that this one jumped straight into it. We get into the competition show so quickly. The author is so good at describing these competitions. It feels like it's actually playing out in front of you. It's so easy to understand what's going on. It reminded me, I don't really watch competition reality shows or reality shows in general, but it kind of sounds like Survivor-ish, and also getting these little bits of behind the scenes manipulation from producers. I love that we got 2 Latina heroines with totally different cultural backgrounds. The one thing though that I found a little bit disappointing is that because there was so much focus on the competition, I just didn't feel like there was a lot of romantic development that was happening, especially from their past timeline when they originally fell for one another, that I feel like I needed that to get the full scope of their relationship. And I also would have liked a little bit of time outside the competition to see them settled and feel like, yeah, they're going to last outside of this show and not just in this artificial environment that they've fallen in love in twice now. I waffle back and forth with this one, somewhere between 3 and 4 stars. I think I lean more towards 4 stars just because it was so entertaining. And finally, last one. Oh my God, how long have I been filming? An hour and 20 minutes. Okay, last up we have Cruel Summer by C.W. Farnsworth. This is the 3rd book in the Next Generation series for the Kensingtons. However, these are so interconnected, you can absolutely read it like a standalone. So this is Second Chance, Right Person, Wrong Time, Billionaire, Summer Romance. Wren is the youngest of the Kensington cousins. She takes a trip out to the Hamptons, makes the very rash decision to go cliff diving, not really essentially thinking that like, oh, the local kids will also be doing that same thing and have beat her to the cliff. That's how she ends up meeting Sawyer Bennett. So Sawyer is a local kid. He doesn't really mix with the Hampton elites other than to help them with their boats at his marina job. Despite no overlap in their worlds, they keep running into one another and he feels like he can't escape Wren. But she does serve as a bit of a fun distraction from some recent tragedies that have plagued his life and really derailed a lot of his future. What starts as a summer fling that's certainly not destined to last becomes the roller coaster ride that neither of them can quite seem to get off no matter the number of times they experience heartbreak. So this is perfect for people who got that summertime sadness. This reminds me a little bit of The Summer We Fell got blended into the Kensington series and then maybe like a little dash of A Love Letter to Whiskey just because of the right person, wrong time element. The Summer We Fell also has that, but it did take me a minute to get like settled into this book. I didn't quite have my bearings because it started off so different than the other books. I think because Wren is pretty disconnected from a lot of the other family compared to some of the other cousins that we've gotten or even the parents. I liked that both hero and heroine kind of had this darkness, this sadness to both of them because I felt like it informed a lot of the messiness, some of the recklessness, some of the immaturity, the not being willing to commit just yet. They're trying to be unaffected by one another. They're trying to be like practical about how it's not going to work out and feeling like they're the person that cares a whole lot more. So they're trying to protect themselves in this relationship and it really prevents them from going all in. I think it really captures well that aimless, breezy summer situationship that's so clearly on a timeline, but they want it to be more. And them time after time kind of coming up against this and trying to figure out how do we make this work over time, gaining some perspective, having other relationships, finally being willing to open themselves up and they're worried about being rejected by the only person that's maybe seen all of them. It's painful because you see these train wrecks coming. Honestly, once I got to the 60% mark, I was like, I just have to barrel through the rest of this because I need that HEA. I need to know that these two are going to be okay. I really liked too that with the disparity in their wealth or their family's income, that Wren really isn't a person that ever shows herself very interested in money or the wealth and status of her family. It's like more of like a fact of her life, like to kind of throw around expensive luggage. She'll get a summer job just because she's like, that feels like something that I should do, have a little bit of my own money. And with the hero, I really liked that there were a few red herrings about what his future could look like. There was like a few things that I think other romances would have been like, we're going to make that work out and we're just going to resolve the income disparity between the two of them like that. But this really kept it realistic and that like certain dreams just don't work out. And then when you see where he finally lands, you're like, oh my God, that fits him so well. I can't think of a more perfect way for his life to end it up. But let me tell you, this dude can lean in a doorway. Oh my goodness. There was a lot of descriptions with that and I was like, why is that so hot? But you feel their chemistry when they are together. It is so palpable. The people around them can feel it. It's so clear. This book just like gutted me, put me back together, gutted me again, put me back together. The only critique that I have is I wish we got a little bit more time after they finally decided to be together. I needed just one or two more scenes to feel like it wrapped up rather than just getting cut off. And I could have used like one proper spice scene once they were officially together because they're like hooking up in their summer fling, but I needed that little moment of like emotional finality, I guess. Oh, also, I had a random brain bug with this book and I wanted to float this to y'all. So in this book, all of the people call cars sedans. And I know technically that's not incorrect to say, but do people actually say that casually? I'm gonna drive my sedan home. Do people say that? If so, what part of the country are you from? I have so many questions about that. Or is that just a quirk of CW? Couple words of warning, if you don't like miscommunication, I just don't think you're gonna like this. Also, there is some light other woman drama. It never becomes like a full-blown thing, but anyways, just wanted to warn you about that. Rating of 5 stars, and what a way to wrap up the month. All right. Oh, I've been sitting here forever. The lighting is so weird. Honestly, the sun is like making me start to sweat. I would love to hear from you now about how reading went in February. What did you love? What did you hate? What did you DNF? Tell me anything and everything related to your February reading. watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here, for sitting through all my gabbing. I was very all over the place today. I feel a little bit spacey, so hopefully this has been pulled together in a halfway decent video. But with all of that, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like this video if you did in fact like it. You did make it to the end, which is honestly impressive. These videos are very long, so hopefully you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely double check. There's a high number of people that are repeat watchers that have not subscribed. I would love to have you back for more videos, and I really, really, really do hope I see you on my next video. Bye-bye.